Welcome everyone. In this video, I am going to teach about functions. So what is a function? It is a set of statements that take inputs, do some specific computation and produces some output. So basically what is the meaning of function? It means it is going to perform some kind of task. So it will consist of a set of statements that will perform some task. That set of statements is known as the function. The idea is to put some commonly or repeatedly done tasks together and make a function so that instead of writing the same code again and again for different inputs, we can call the function. So this is the main idea to create function. That is, if we want to do the same task again and again, so instead of writing the code again and again, we write it once and then we can call it as many times as we want. The general form of a function is, first you will write down the return type, then function name, then here within parenthesis arguments will be present. This is optional. This may or may not be present, and inside the curly brackets you will write down the code, that is your function. Now let us see what are the advantages of function. So first advantage is it avoids repetition of codes. It increases program readability. It divides a complex problem into smaller, simpler ones. It reduces the chances of error. So suppose we are having a big project. Suppose the project consists of uh, reading the inputs, then performing the operations and displaying the outputs. So instead of writing everything at the same time, so we can divide it into three functions or three modules. One is input, one is operation, and then output. So different person can write down the different modules separately, and at last all the modules can be combined to create the application. So this is what is done basically to create big applications where many functions are like different tasks are needed. So these tasks will be divided into functions. So different person can work on the different modules or function, and at last all the modules or functions can be combined to create the whole application. So that's why function is so important. Let us see the components of function. So a function should consist of these three things. The first one is function prototype or declaration, function definition, and function call. So a function, you can use a function only if all these three things are available. So let's see how to declare the syntax, how to write down the syntax for function declaration. So first you will write down return type, then function name. Return type means what type of data this function is going to return. We will see this return type in details in later sections. So just for now you know that what type of data this function will return. Based on that we write down the return type. Suppose it is going for, we are performing the addition of two numbers. So what will be the return type of that function? Obviously an integer, so that time we will write int here. Then argument type, argument name. So argument type, suppose int, name you can give any a, b, c or whatever it is, then comma, then depending on your requirements you can give n number of arguments. Okay, now this part is optional and it should end with a semicolon. So this is the syntax for function declaration. One example I have shown here. Suppose this function is not going to return any value, so I am writing here void. Void is a data type. It doesn't contain any value, it is valueless. Then add is the name of my function, and this one, as I have told, it is optional, so this time I am keeping it blank and it should end with a semicolon. So this is the function declaration. Then another example I have shown here. Here suppose return type is present, I am giving int. Add, I want to add two numbers, so int a comma int b, and then it is ending with a semicolon. So this is another example of function declaration. Now we will see syntax for function definition. So function definition, first of all you will write down return type, then you will write down function name, then arguments may or may not be present, and inside the loop you will be writing the code. your statements. That is, whatever this function is going to perform, that statements you will be writing here. So for the previous example that we have declared, see here we have done the declaration void add semicolon. So for this, the definition you will have to write down exactly the same thing. Whatever return type you have given, if argument is empty, it should be empty, and even the function name should be same. So here void add, just no semicolon here, then within the parenthesis, sorry, within the curly braces, I am going to write down the statements. So this is function definition. Now what is left? Function call. So in function call, we just write down the function name, and within parenthesis, arguments may or may not be present, and it will be ending with a semicolon. So if we take the previous example, so this is the name of my function. So I'll just write down this part to call this function. See, got it? So this is how I'm going to call the function. Similarly for this one, I'm going to call this part, but here I'm not going to write down the data type of the argument, just a comma b. So here you see add a comma b and ending with a semicolon. So keep in mind, semicolon should be present in function declaration and function call, but not in function definition. Now what are the different types of functions available? One is library function, another is user defined function. Now what is library function? Library functions are the built-in functions that are already defined in the C library. So there are some functions you have already used, like printf, scanf, or suppose you want to perform some mathematical operations like to find out the square root of a number or power of a number. So these functions are already present in the C library. So these are the library functions. We need not write down the code. If we want to use this function, we simply need to include the header file and then use this functions. For example, math functions like power, square root, etc. is present in math.h. Then exit, malloc, calloc, etc. present in stdlib.h, and so on. Many functions are present, library functions are present. Then comes user defined functions. Those functions that are defined by user to use them when required are called user defined functions. Function definition is written by user. Main is an example of user defined function. So how do you know that a particular thing is a function? So after writing the name, if you see parenthesis like this, you know that it is a function. Now inside main, we write down our own code. That's why it is known as user defined functions. So in this section, we are going to learn about user defined functions only. So that's all for this video. In the next video, I'll be talking about how we can write down programs using functions by passing arguments. Thank you.